All right, good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you. So we are having some technical difficulties today. The microphone does not work, so we will be projecting our voices. Can you all hear? Can you hear me in the back? Sure. All right, awesome. So we have a full agenda today. We will have, I think everyone's here to hear about the city budget. So we will hear about that today. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask those when we get to it. We're going to start off today with our fire department. And it's timely after the 4th of July and our new ordinance. So we'll start off with fire. I think they're outside. Let's go ahead and skip ahead. We'll go to police and then we'll go to fire. If somebody from our police department wants to go first.
Show my true colors. There's a camera there. Is it blocked? Yes, we don't want to block it. Right. How's everyone doing this morning?
Great.
Everyone hear me okay? I used to work at the jail, so we'll call this a pod voice. It's not yelling, but it's projecting your voice. My name is Officer Villegas. I'm from Patrol East and Community Policing. Officer Hudgens is here with me from North, and Officer Metcalf from South Side. I wanted to go first. I didn't really bring any statistics because normally we talk about stats in DAB 1 at the meetings and then neighborhood associations. But something that's been kind of on my mind, and something that I think Mr. Johnson would agree with me. We last week we had what we called the neighborhood walk, and we had some citizens come out and say, you know, they wanted to go through some communities and talk to neighbors and some neighborhoods that have been affected by some issues recently as far as shootings go. And so I have with me some business cards that I'll put on the back table, but the premise of everything is if you see something, say something. Since we don't have a fire department member here, I'm going to pretend that I'm a firefighter. I want you guys to pretend that I'm a firefighter too. So just imagine this. You're walking down your neighborhood, down your street, okay? Just kind of close your eyes if you want to. But imagine a house on your block. You see smoke in the backyard. What's something that you guys would do if you were to see just a little bit of smoke in your backyard? Anyone?
Check it out.
You're going to check it out, right? Yeah. Okay, so you're going to go check it out, see what's going on, maybe ask the neighbor if everything's okay. If everything's fine, great. If not, smoke gets a little bit worse, then what are you going to do? You're going to call the fire department, right? So those two answers right there pretty much tell me what my next answer would be for this question. If you see flames coming out of the house and people screaming inside, you're definitely going to call 911, right? Well, we'll do that with the fire department, but anymore it seems like when the police are needed and we have issues in a neighborhood, everyone sees smoke, but nobody calls. We have these shootings out here and these drive-bys and these homicides and all these things. We have what's called an impact meeting afterward. It stands for informational meetings providing answers for citizens today. And a bunch of us go out in these neighborhoods and we try and talk with neighbors and answer questions and give them some case information. And a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, whenever I have these meetings, someone will say, that house has been a problem for 3 or 4 months. I'm surprised you guys haven't done anything about it yet. And I'll go back and look at the call history at that house. I don't have anything. No one ever called us. You know, and we're lucky in Wichita. We have 911, which takes emergency phone calls, right? We have police case desk, which you can make reports over the phone that are non-emergent nature. You have CP officers with an email and a phone number. You have patrol stations that you can call from 9 to 5 regular business hours, right? So we have all these different resources, yet we need people to call us. I had a shooting at 13th and Glendale. 40 to 50 rounds were fired at 2 o'clock on a Sunday. Guess how many people wanted to talk to me about that case? At PM, after church. One person came out and wanted to talk to me. Just one. There were a couple other people that saw something, but they got pointed out by some neighbors and said, yeah, but they don't want to talk to me. So, I mean, we want to try and solve these crimes. We want to do better for the community, but we've got to start asking the community members, if you see something, say something. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about anyone in this room, because y'all are here for a reason. Y'all are probably the ones that call us. But take this to your neighborhood meetings. Take this to your people, to your streets, to your neighbors. If you talk to them about something that's going on, did you call 911? Have you made a report? Have you reached out to community police officers? That's what we're here for. So that's what I wanted to bring up. Yes, sir.
Let me ask you, you cited a number of, you gave some information about things that we could use
Sure.
to get in touch with you. But where is that available? How do you get, is any of, it in a hard copy or somewhere?
You know what, I can do that. I can actually, if you want, I can make a flyer with all the different resources we have for, say, District 1 even. With your name. Yeah, we can do something like that and maybe even see about putting it on the Facebook page. Yeah. I can make a flyer with all the resources and phone numbers available to you.
One access for information is an app called Nextdoor.
Mm-hmm.
And you can really learn a lot on there. It
Sure.
gives you pretty, the neighbors around you will kind of enlighten you as to what's going on in their specific area.
And the way that I use Nextdoor is I ask my neighborhood presidents to relay that information to me because I just have 38 beat. And in 38 beat, I have 7 different Nextdoor groups that I would have to monitor. And if you guys can imagine, I'm looking at 7 different, that's all I do all day. I get caught down that rabbit hole.
It's really beneficial, as far as kind of knowing quickly what's going on, I mean, it's not like that.
Sure.
Police dispatch.
Right, and that's a good point to bring up, And so, I mean, if you guys do see something on there that maybe we need to know about, call us. I mean, we're not going to be able to monitor Nextdoor.
I'm just saying.
Right.
It's generally after the fact that you learn about it on Nextdoor.
Sure, and that's something for everyone. I have Nextdoor for my neighborhood, and you're right, you do have some good information on there, so it is a good resource for the public as well.
I've never heard of Nextdoor.
No, it's just Nextdoor app,
It's an
Android or
app.
iPhone.
Yeah, right. You just go into your app store on your Apple or Google, or it's Apple or Android. I don't know, either one available. But you just go into there. It is Nextdoor, just like and that's all. Just Nextdoor, and then pull up your app, and it'll prompt you how to download it.
I have one over here. Yes, sir.
I like the communitycrimemap.com.
Yes.
That shows all the crimes, all the police calls.
Mm-hmm.
Every morning, I get to see what I ask for what's within a mile of my home.
Right.
And every morning, you can see what types of crimes happen, even all over the city.
That's right.
So that is, I think, an accurate and it's real valuable.
And what he's referring to is something that Officer Cruz had posted on the Wichita Police Department Facebook page. There's an instructional video on how to use it and everything. It's really nice to have. And I believe it's on our city website as well if anyone needs that. So.
But what, we're assuming that everybody is on the website.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of, especially in this area, a lot of people are not connected.
Sure.
So that's why I asked you about hard
Yeah,
copy.
no, I mean, we can make hard copy flyers for you. We'll see if we can't get one posted here. We'll give some to Officer Metcalf. He can put some down to the South Rec Centers, and I can put one over at Edgemore too. So.
Okay.
You live around here?
Yes,
Where at?
2309 East Murdoch. That should be on someone's flag, we recall all the time.
Yeah. Tapia?
That's 44 weeks.
Okay, no, it's 43.
43.
That's Officer Tapia. He's your community policing officer. I can get you in touch with him. We can handle the majority of the non-emergency stuff. So if you have questions about neighborhood, loud music, or cars parking in the street, or just neighborhood disputes, or you just have questions about what's going on in your neighborhood, that's what our team is built for. That's what we handle, that kind of stuff there. So Officer Tapia, I'll give you his email address. You can shoot him emails. But I mean, it's a lot easier to go directly to the source, which is us, than trying to go around some of this other stuff. And these apps are good too, but for the crime stuff, we can give you all that information.
Should I get that information today?
Yep, I'll give it to you before we leave. This is my area, so I'm just north of you too, so I know the majority of the stuff that goes on in your area.
This is your area?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. I'll give you my card before we leave.
So, and just remember, if you do have to call 911 for any reason, I know there's a little bit of fear from retaliation that can be in there. I'm saying a little, but yeah.
A lot of fear.
I got you. When you call, and don't let that deter you from calling 911. A lot of people are like, no, I don't want to call because I don't want to deal with it. Well, we had, what was the one on North Side? We had 10 different houses struck by gunfire.
Yeah, 1400 North Harding.
So that's people just like you That's innocent people who have nothing to do with anything. Their houses, their cars are getting struck by gunfire. If you see something, you need to call us, call 911 and tell us. You can always request, say, I don't want you to come to my door and knock. I want you to call me. So what we'll do, sometimes we'll go around the corner, we'll make that phone call, we'll say, do you have anything else to add? This is what we found, this is what we're gonna be doing about it. They can call you on the phone.
All,
Okay?
here's the thing about all major crime scenes, shootings, anything, we're gonna knock your door no matter what. We're gonna knock everybody's door. We're gonna go up and down and we're gonna knock everyone's door. So don't be nervous that the cops are showing up, 'cause we're gonna knock at everyone's door. It's not gonna, just gonna be yours. You can always call and remain anonymous. You can always call and say, hey, I heard this at this time frame in this area. That helps us out tremendously. If you just say, hey, this is what I heard. It sounded like it was this direction at this time. I don't want contact by the police. I want to remain anonymous. That helps us out.
Well, and part of the thing that we see, we do have assaults and things in our neighborhood, but we also have things that people consider are not a big deal. Like somebody took something off your porch. Someone broke into my car, but they didn't break anything. They only took the spare change, so I didn't call.
Right.
But then when we go to a meeting, half a dozen people in the room have had that happen. So I have to repeat to them, call and make a report.
Yeah, those kind of
They
reports.
need to know what's going on. We
Exactly.
had that a year ago, and they caught them.
Yeah.
But it was because everybody started reporting, even the little stuff.
Yeah.
Because that leads to the bigger stuff.
Because that pops up to us as a crime trend. It pops up as a hot spot, and if no one's reporting it, we don't know about it.
Right,
And we can allocate our officers to that area to focus on it.
right.
And then we just shove the resources in there because people want us to do extra patrols. I gotta justify that. I gotta justify a reason to pull 2 officers and myself to do a special assignment over the weekend. So it just helps us in our cause and helps you guys in the long run.
We have things like, somebody had a person who was high, who thought he was at home, rattled the door like, let me in! And they don't have him on video. And it was hilarious, but they didn't call. You know,
Yep.
I guess, and he left something on their porch.
Right.
So then when they realized that, they did call and they came and claimed it. But things like that are nice to share. We have a Facebook page. We don't do Nextdoor because the Nextdoor page that includes us is humongous and
Right.
we don't ever see any of our own stuff.
Yeah.
So we have a Facebook page and we get a lot of posts on things like that people notice outside, but they don't call 911. And I put in the newsletter periodically to please call if you see anything that looks suspicious. If they're innocent, then they're not gonna get in trouble.
Right.
But call, please. It's hard.
I noticed, looking at the news, all guns, most of these shootings, the weapons were stolen. Do you guys do any background checks on the people that the guns are stolen from? It just don't make sense to buy a gun, which the laws need to be changed on that. Leave it in a pot for somebody to steal. That just don't
Well,
make sense.
I would agree with you there, and unfortunately, I don't make those rules. I don't
I
make
know
those
at
laws.
your level you can't, but
Yeah.
I don't make that suggestion.
Honestly, I think that'd be good legislation to try and push somewhere.
Yeah.
Trying to, and you know, these people that leave their guns in their cars unlocked, because the majority of our car break-ins are unlocked cars. People walking around checking doors. I mean, to me, I think that person should be held responsible at some point. So that'd be good legislation to push.
Yeah.
I think.
That could be a child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting into that car.
We do, when we return guns back to proper owners, we check what's called a triple I to make sure that they don't have any felony convictions, so they can legally own a firearm. So we do that before we give any gun back to someone.
So, yeah, so I mean, if someone had the idea to maybe write some legislation up to say, if you've ever had a gun stolen, that it was your fault, maybe you shouldn't own one or have some kind of sanction on that. I think, I see what you're saying. I think that may be a good idea, but that's above my pay grade.
So as you guys patrol these neighborhoods, what sort of interventions do you do with people outside, or like what kind of things do you guys do to connect with the community at large so that people do feel comfortable to call you?
Right. Well, something I do, I can't speak to these two, which they can do it here in a second, but something that I do is as I'm rolling around, I roll slow. I roll slow with my windows down. I'm trying to wave at as many people as I want. Now, sometimes I get the one finger wave, which I understand, but a lot of times I try to interact with the kids, because a lot of times if they see us interacting with kids, the parents will come out and start interacting with us too. It's just communication. It's just getting to, I know people's names up and down that block, whereas some folks don't even know their neighbor. You know, it's sad when I don't even live in Wichita, but when I know 15, 20 people on just one street between 13th and Central, and yet we don't know each other's next door neighbor. We don't know the guy catty corner from us. So that's what we've got to do. We got to start building those bonds together. You know, we have a neighborhood watch program that, in essence, sometimes it's hard to get the official neighborhood watch, but if you want, email your CP officer, get a phone tree. You know, maybe you guys can have a block captain who has everyone's phone numbers. I know that Mr. Hogue here, we have everyone's phone numbers on a list. If you were to see something at their house, you can call them up. Hey, is everything okay? Yeah, well, I just happened to see this guy walking in front of your house. Just wanted to check on you. It just builds a kind of a bond that we've kind of lost as a city, it seems like. We need to get to know each other, get personal, know the kids, know who frequents a house, who should be there and who shouldn't. You know, those are the things that make this city, I think, Wichita, a really good place to live, is that we had a really good neighborly bond, and we're starting to lose that. We're starting to break it down. So we gotta come back. We gotta take our streets back over, and we gotta become a friendly town again. That's what it comes down to.
These neighborhood associations, we need to get bigger. But that takes you guys, as the neighbors, going out and talking to your neighbors to coming to them. Because I can go out and say, hey, you need to show up to the next neighborhood meeting, and it's going to go in one ear and out the other. But if you have 3 or 4 neighbors saying, hey, we're all going to the neighborhood meeting on Tuesday night, we can start getting more and more of those people, because we present and we talk to you guys at every neighborhood association. So I have Power, and I see multiple people here from Power. I have Northeast Central. I see people from Northeast Central. First Monday of every month and second Tuesday of every month, I go in there and I present to all those people that show up. I talk to them about what's going on in their community. They give me all the problems that they're having or the issues that they see, and we talk about it. And that's one of the ways I get out to talk to the people in my neighborhoods.
I think though I mean, we have to think about 20-somethings, 30-somethings because I'm the vice president of my neighborhood association, so I had to get it going again. But the people who join that, they're not 20s and 30-somethings.
Agreed.
So how are we connecting with 20s and 30-somethings that aren't they're not gonna go to a meeting? I mean, look at the average age of the person here now.
I agree.
You know? So, hey, no disrespect. It's the truth.
No, I know.
And I agree. And I think that's why it's important for neighborhood associations to maybe look at doing some kind of Facebook or maybe even a Twitter or something like that. They're free accounts that you can create. And I know that it's going to be hard for people to find a way to moderate that. But that's literally that's something that you have to do. Have a hashtag for your neighborhood. Put it on Instagram. Hashtag, Lambsdale or whatever the case may be. Those are the kind of things that might help out. I know that I always suggest to people having some kind of street sign, a little tiny corner sign that says neighborhood meeting, this date, this time. Invite people to go. I mean, if it's just the same circle going all the time, that's not always going to work. You won't always want to bring in new blood.
No, and I've had this exact same discussion with Brandon. How do we get more people and younger people in the community engaged? And it's not an easy answer. I don't know. We've all talked about it, but
The upcoming community night out might be a good resource, have something, events that are gonna engage, 20-something,
Yeah.
we've talked about that.
Yeah. And I sat with Brandon and talked about it. Do we have more barbecues with
basketball or
us?
something like that they might be interested in, how to be there.
So one thing we are gonna start doing is, some of our officers, Camila and I, are gonna go knock doors in neighborhoods and talk about neighborhood associations, getting back involved, the importance of them, how staff come to those, and for our 20-somethings, what it actually means and how powerful it is to have a neighborhood association. It may not get them all, but we can also ask what ideas would attract them at the door, and then we can start trying to do that more with our neighborhood associations.
One thing I kind of thought of is, a lot of the neighborhoods are getting kind of trashed out. That's kind of one of the reasons I'm here today, is that some things just aren't getting handled as far as, just having a clean neighborhood. I wonder if maybe with your interest in, getting community more together, maybe we had more of the cleanup days, which would get us interactive with one another as well as doing something helpful in the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And there's something about that, it's like playing a game or something, when you're helping one another and doing a task, you do form a bond, and I think maybe that might be an avenue to maybe get people more familiar with who one another, who we are, what's normal at your house, how many cars are normally at your house, you just talk to one another and know what the normal is, so when it looks abnormal, you call 911.
Right.
Maybe.
is there an ordinance where normally people park in their driveway, not in front of the house? So who do you, I guess the question is, how many inspectors do we have? Because I can drive within at least 3 or 4 blocks of where I live, and people are SUVs in the yard, or up by the door, or that kind of thing.
So there's one inspector usually has several mile radius that they're responsible for, and they're overworked just like all of us. I mean, they have a lot of stuff on their plate, but stuff like that we can handle too. You can call that in and say, hey, my neighbor's continuing to park in the front yard. It's illegal to park on an unpaved surface. So if you're not parking the street or on your driveway, it's illegal to park there. So if it's continuing, that's something small that we can handle too. You can call us or call your community policing officer. Hey, these guys are continuing to park in their front yard. And the majority of the time we'll go up and say, hey, letting you know, you may not know, it's illegal to park in your front yard. If they continue to do it after that, then we can look at writing citations. We don't like to write citations. We like to educate. We like to tell people, hey, you may not know this, but this is against the law. And the majority of the time, people move it. Most people don't know you can't park your broke down car in the street. They can just leave it there. And once you let them know, they usually handle it. So
We have time for 2 more questions. Then we have to move on.
Does that apply when there's several cars at a home and they've already had maybe not a citation, but an officer visit them about parking in front, and they're continuing to put vehicles partially on the driveway and partially on the lawn?
It's illegal to own an inoperable vehicle. So if your vehicle's not, they're moving.
They have different vehicles at different times, at any day of the week there's different vehicles.
So the city street's 48 hours. You can't leave it on the city street for 48 hours. You can leave it if it's running on your private property, like in your driveway, for as long as you want.
Well, my question is, can it be partially on the lawn, even if it's on the part of the driveway? Because that's what they're doing. They have so many vehicles, they can't get them all on their
No,
driveway.
it's got to be on a paved surface. So it's got to be all the way
If it
up.
has one tire on an unpaved surface, then it's in violation.
The whole issue with that is, it's a matter with the city council. Because anytime you take, for instance, Oliver Street or Grove Street, you can't park at the curb. And almost all the older houses only have a 1-lane driveway, so people end up parking on the lot.
Yeah.
So when the city closes down, no parking on the street, the city has created the problem. The city needs to deal with it.
Last one right there. Next time you're gonna go way up here, so.
Just a suggestion, when we were talking about communication and maybe a response letter, all these neighborhoods are the same way, the older people are there, but maybe we can get wind, and maybe the city to provide some signs, neighborhood signs that they put out on prior to their meeting days. And some of these homeowner associations on Woodbine, they'll advertise their meeting date and time and location, and maybe just below that sign, maybe about yay tall, you put one of those dry erase boards and you talk about the issues you're gonna talk about it at the meeting. Ordinances and stuff of this nature, because a lot of times you post them to those main arteries that come into your neighborhood, people will drive, they'll see them. You know, you post them out there about a few days before that, and they'll know what the topics are, because not everybody gets the newsletter, not everybody gets the Facebook and all of those, but every time I turn in off of Greenbrier, every time I turn in off of 25th, I see those signs. And that tells me when the meeting is, puts it fresh on my mind, and what some of those issues are going to be.
There is.
The city and Wynn could probably do that. Get that together for you.
Agreed. All right. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you guys' time. Thank you. These are the questions I walk out and sit them over here.
All right, next we will have our city budget. So I do not see fires yet.
No.
Have our city budget
They come,
presentation.
I guess you can take a break.
No.
All right. My name is Elizabeth Poultry, and I work in the budget office, and I will try to speak loudly today. We've got some handouts here, and we've got a big crowd, so if you all could be neighborly and share,
that would be really useful. And just a loose end, someone mentioned about parking on Grove, and there's going to be some parking plans that are underway for on-street and off-street parking. They're just in the preliminary stages. There's not been any community engagement yet. But if you're interested in being involved in that, Scott Wadle in Transit, he's in Transit now, is going to be the person who's going to be coordinating those, so you all might know him. So that would be the person to talk to about that. So are you ready to talk about the budget? All right. So first we're going to talk about the capital improvement program. I've been getting quite a few emails about that lately, so it'll be good to touch on that briefly. We call it the CIP. It's a 10-year plan for major improvements for the community. So a lot of things that involve construction, shovels, bulldozers, those sorts of things. It includes roads, bridges, water and sewer projects, the library that was just built was part of the CIP. And over a 10-year period, the CIP is $1.8 billion. But of that, about $300 million is funded by property tax dollars. So a lot of it has from other funding sources. So on page 3 here, we've got this graph. So it says where the dollars come from. Actually, about a third of the CIP is funded from water and sewer utility payments to pay for water and sewer utility projects, to expand the system and also keep it in good repair. GO at large is another third, and then the rest comprises the rest of it. So we do receive some federal funding for some of our projects and some state funding as well.
What's GO at large?
Okay, she had just asked what is GO at large. Thank you for the question. So GO at large stands for Government General Obligation Bonds. So a lot of our bonds are backed by, so water bonds are backed by the ability of the water utility to receive water revenue. Sewer bonds are backed by sewer revenue. GO at large is based on the full faith and credit of the government. So the debt service fund, if you look at your property tax bill, it actually goes to the general fund and the debt service fund. And the debt service fund revenue is what pays for GO at large debt. There's a few little exceptions. Stormwater bonds and airport bonds are actually paid for through GO at large. They don't issue their own debt, and then they reimburse that fund. So full faith and credit, it's a very fancy term, but it just means the ability of the government to stand on its own, that the government would repay the debt. They're not going to pass it off to someone else.
So we've got a pretty good credit rating here for the city of
Our
Wichita?
credit rating is a AA+, which is very good. The only higher would be a AAA. And one of the reasons why we get a AA+ consistently is because of our financial management. So it's something we're really proud of. So that's exciting. So GO at large, you've got a new term. Yay. So then where the dollars go, arterials is the biggest slice. Water and sewer, again, is a third. It's a third coming in, a third going out. Public facilities are a pretty large piece of the pie. And then we round it out with freeways, park, and airport. Even though the airport terminal is the most visible part of the airport, there's a lot of ongoing, the airport campus is very large. And I think over a 10-year period, it's pretty expensive to keep the runways in the condition they should be in to be a certified airport.
I see transit is this little teeny tiny
Yeah,
sliver.
the transit portion of the CIP is only for matching a federal grant or rolling stock. So about 83% of rolling stock, which is buses and vans, and also their equipment is paid for through FTA grants. And then the debt service fund matches it. So it's only the match. So on slide 5 here, the mill levy rate for the next CIP is going to be, for the next year, for 2019, is going to be 7.5 mils. That's 1 mil less than was in the debt service fund for 2018. This shift was done on purpose in order to fund all of the items that the city council said were a priority to put into the operating budget. So that being the case, if you go from 8.5 to 7.5, we all know you have to do a really good job at prioritizing. So this year, with guidance from the city council, we put together a new matrix for the CIP to rank and to score and rank our projects. And we're looking for things like, does it have a return on investment? Is it in the established core area, which is from Rock to Ridge and 31st South and 29th North? Is it an existing plan? All of those types of things we've used to score the CIP, and what you'll see as we move through is some things move to the top that weren't at the front of the CIP before, and some projects moved back that were in the early years in the past. So, yes?
Could you go back to that again about the ranking?
Yeah, so we have this, so we rank all of our things, and I can't, it's embarrassing, I can't remember. Okay, so one thing is, does it align with the community investments plan? Do you all remember the community investments plan?
Yeah.
We talked about taking care of what we have. Remember that one? Taking care of what we have, and then the highest priorities was streets, bridges, and water supply. That was about 3 or 4 years ago. Consistency with other plans are already in place. And then financial considerations. Another thing is leveraging. Does it have outside funding? And then the established core area was another function. So it really, I mean, it's not a completely different plan than last time, but it really has made a difference in how we rank projects. It's interesting. So with Les Mills, the good news on slide 6 here is this is really important. We still stay within our metrics for debt service. So we're going to be there'll be a mill less going into the debt service fund, but we'll still be able to meet the benchmark there. But again, it requires prioritization. So on slide 7, these are some of the things that came to the top when we did this new matrix. 4 police stations are now in the capital improvement program. Previously, there were only 2. 5 fire stations, most of them are replacements of existing fire stations, are in the CIP this time. Fire trucks and equipment, that's an ongoing line. Fire trucks are really costly, so we pay for them through the CIP because they can be bonded because of their cost and their service life. And then a lot of other public safety items. So those were high priorities in the CIP. Some other things we've consistently heard from residents that they're interested in street maintenance. So on slide 8 here, you'll see that there's $78 million over a 10-year period for residential street maintenance. And then the completion of East Kellogg improvements is also included.
Completion?
Completion.
We get a good clap for that.
So the CIP includes East Kellogg, what's under construction now, we bond in after the project's done, so we need to have that capacity in there. That's all of Kellogg that's in the CIP. There are no other Kellogg projects in the freeway section. Yes.
Back on slide 6, there's a peak in the debt service in 2022.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of, the thing about projects that's interesting is that you finance them after the project's completed. And so actually one of the big projects that we have right now that's the project's completed, we've all probably been there, but we've not issued debt for is the new central library. So we've not issued the debt for it. So we tip note projects as they're in progress, and then we issue the debt afterwards. So anyhow. So, and on page 9, we've got some arterial projects here and some facilities projects. The West Street corridor is tied to economic development. That's in for $18 million. A lot of downtown projects for $29 million. Implementing the aquatics master plan. Just to let you know, this is the entire amount for the plan. Each piece of it will be initiated by the city council. Improvements to West Bank that have been talked about, and then we always have ongoing funding for ongoing maintenance at cultural institutions. Yes?
West Bank improvement,
What on earth is that?
yes.
We asked, what is West Bank improvement? That is the ongoing discussion about the replacement of the baseball stadium. So even though there's no plan in place for the baseball stadium, we have, when something does fall into place, we have the capacity in the CIP to be ready for that. Actually, most of the baseball stadium won't be paid for with general obligation bonds. There'll be other funding, but if it happens, we'll be ready. No baseball here. So the next steps on the CIP, this is the last staff meeting that we've been going to in July. It'll be presented to the City Council on July 16th. I've been getting a lot of questions about when it will be online. It'll probably be online July 16th or 17th. Then, just like the budget, we'll have a public hearing on August 7th, and then it'll be adopted on August 14th. So you can be extra civic that day and come to the City Council meeting in the morning and do your neighborhood night out in the evening. All right? So it's memorable. August 14th is the big day. So do you all have any other? Should I move into the operating budget? Just keep going? Is that okay? All right. I have my stage manager in back. All right. So the operating budget. Operating budget funds the operating activities of the city. So mostly it's people and the stuff that people need to do their jobs. So police, fire, daily street maintenance, recreation programming, park maintenance, all those types of things are in the operating budget. It's about $590 million each year. Of that, $225 million is in the general fund. So the rest is in other funds. So we have quite a few enterprise funds for utilities and special revenue funds for other things. So most of the fund discussion happens in the general fund. So that's what we'll focus on today. So what we've noticed, and we've been talking about this quite a bit, is that there's a new normal for city finances. We've been talking a lot about how we have a 20th century tax structure right now. A lot of the things that we receive revenue for are things that were a really good idea to receive revenue for in maybe 30 or 40 years ago. But now the revenue isn't nearly as strong as we would expect. That's resulted in lower growth. So budget deficits are expected if nothing changes. So if you have a cyclical or economic downturn problem, you might see a gap in maybe a couple years, but then things get better. But what we're seeing is a gap every year, and it continues to grow because the decline or the softness in revenue is getting outpaced by our growth in expenditures. So our strategy is to really focus on those core service areas, the things that you all have been talking about, and then to limit spending in other areas.
Excuse me.
Yes.
To what degree does the budget affected by federal grants and federal help? Because I know in prior times the government sends money federally funded, but nobody ever talks about what's coming in and how we're doing that.
Yeah, he asked about the impact of federal grants on our local government budget. Unfortunately, in the time that I've worked in the city of Wichita, I've worked there 12 years now, people talk about how much state aid we used to receive. We used to receive a significant amount of state aid, and we also received more grants and aid from the federal government than we do now. Our budget is based on the federal government grant allocations being similar to they are today, but you're right, as grant allocations decline, it goes back to the whole prioritization. Like if the federal government's not giving you money to provide a service, you have to ask yourselves, is that a service we still want to provide or not? So it's difficult.
Let me answer that. What he really means is, what is the minority and female participation in this budget?
Oh, you mean it?
Yes.
Oh.
Isn't that what you meant?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you meant grants coming in.
Well, I'm talking about that whole thing. I know when I worked for the city and looking at some of the budget concerns, there was federal funds that would come to the city for special things, and especially helping the people in the areas. And I was just wondering if that's still going on, or how.
Are you referring to CDBG funding?
That plus any money coming from the federal government to help the city with their budget on special projects that we do.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that we've far on receiving the same amount of federal funding that we did in the prior year. So,
But that still doesn't answer the question.
well, I think that was his question, wasn't it?
The question that goes along with that, along with the federal money goes some requirements for minority and female business.
Yeah, participate, yes.
And we have not had this.
No, we have, we do have a vendor development program in the purchasing office. And each department has goals for EDE and DDE participation, and I think that we've consistently met those goals.
No.
I collect all the performance measures for the organization, and the outcomes for that have met the goals, and they have an annual report. So, yeah. So as far as I know, and Michelle, I guess, could speak to that too, but I think as far as I know, we're in good standing when it comes to meeting those goals. So those goals might be different than what your desires are, but as far as meeting the federal goals, I think that we've met them.
So that's minimum.
Yeah, and that was an issue with the construction, the airport terminal bid. That was a big issue.
Well, I understand it because I used to work for the city, and what happens is that as long as you have any, just to use smell test, of cooperation with the rules, then that's listed as in compliance. And, my concern is that the people getting benefits from these programs is very minimal or don't even know anything about it.
As far as people being able to bid on them?
Yes, that, plus, just the involvement and the information getting to the people that this thing even exists.
Okay. Well, I'll have to provide, there's someone who works in the finance department whose job is vendor development, and I'll provide that feedback to him. But I think, as far as I know, he does spend a lot of time on outreach because it's beneficial to us to have as many vendors as possible when we issue bids. So there's a benefit for us too. Yes.
I only see two entries in your presentation here for economic development. One for $275,000, another one for $375,000. On page 11. But I know that we have just recently given Spirit $4 million to build a 7-story building. We've given $20 million to Cargill for their development on Douglas, to help them with parking and et cetera. And they're the largest privately owned corporation in America. I don't understand why they have to have so much of our taxpayer money. And they also $12 million to build apartments next door to our library. We should have gotten $12 million from them, but instead we're giving the people out of Kansas City $12 million. It's no wonder we don't have enough money for police and fire and the problems that we're trying to solve otherwise. My question to you is, where do I find a list of all of these crazy development things that they do in the glass building downtown?
Okay, as far as, I'll take this question and then we're gonna circle back to slide 14. As far as, the apartments near the library, those are part of the West Bank TIF, and the West Bank TIF is certified every year. And you can find that as part of the budget. The 2018 budget is online. As far as the cargo parking garage, that was included in the CIP. We include CIP projects for downtown redevelopment, and that's where you would find that. And what was the third one? The Cargill and the apartments?
There's $6 million going to a company that's going to build a large building out by Jabara Airport. There are no employment requirements. We're just depositing with them future taxes on that project so that they get whatever the time is, 20 years or whatever it is, to pay the property taxes without paying property taxes.
And it's on the Jabara site. If it's on the Jabara site, that would be part of the airport fund. So all of those initiatives are considered by the city council, and they're the obligation get, a lot of times for a TIF district, we have debt and we receive tax increment financing to service that debt. But in the case of a TIF district, that doesn't have an impact on our ability to meet our operating requirements. So I'm gonna move on.
I have the book that's about this thick, it involves your budget.
Right.
Where can I find the list of those kinds of projects
The
that
TIFs
require cash from the city that keep us from having money for these other neighborhood issues?
Right, all economic development activity runs through the Economic Development Fund, and that's really for a lot of things like the $275,000 it's referenced for cooperative economic development activities. Like I said, the West Bank TIF, that would be on there's a page for each TIF fund, so that would be on that page. And the Cargill project, that would be in the CIP. And anything involving Jabara Airport would be on with the airport fund. So, I said I'd take his question, I'm gonna move to 14, because we still have housing people too, so you'll wanna speak, right? So, if that's okay. So, I don't have many left, and then we can have the discussion, because it might be that I answer your question as we go. So, on slide 14, these charts show what we've seen with revenue trends. Sales tax, that looks positive, but if you look at the tail end of it, it's been declining, which is really unusual during a expansionary period. Port fines have declined. Gas tax has been very level since there's been a lot of fuel efficiency, and then also cable TV franchise fees are another revenue source. Are you all familiar with franchise fees, what franchise fees are? They're fees that we charge for activity that occurs in the right-of-way. As more and more people cut the cord on telephones and cable TV, we've seen a lot of declines in that. So I just read an article, I'm like, oh, why am I reading this? And it was about California has mandated that all new construction have of residential buildings 3 stories or less have solar panels. It's like, that's interesting. And then I realized that would make an impact on franchise fees as well, because right now, unless you are innovative and have solar panels on your house, most people receive their electricity from Westar. So there's just a lot of things going on with technology and innovation that make an impact. So on page 15, we put it all together, and this was our current outlook as of June when we had the workshop with the city council. Like I said, a structural deficit means that your deficit is growing each year. But what we heard from the city council is that they wanted to implement the police staffing study, which is why we moved the mill from the debt service fund to the general fund. It's going to fund 21 new commission positions, 11 new civilian positions, which will allow field staff to move to doing more policing activities. These civilian positions will be there to help with things of limited scope. And then it includes also these people need equipment so they can go and do their jobs. So we'll have a lot of one-time equipment purchases this year. Another thing we've heard consistently is street maintenance. So we've also heard from people though that they're like, oh, now you're doing street maintenance. It's like they forgot or something what it was really like. So the operating budget is going to have $4 million. So you put that together, we'll have $10 million in 2019 and $11 million in 2020, and also the HIA funding. So that's a lot of street maintenance. But a good question is, if you're doing more street maintenance and you're doing more police, what are you going to be doing less of? And that, just like the CIP, we've had to do a lot of prioritization in the operating budget. We went through all the activities we provide in each department to this ranking list, and they listed things as being untouchable or touchable. So untouchable activities are things that are mandated, or they're just so core to what the department does that you can't imagine not doing them. So for example, we don't have a federal mandate to have parks or to take care of our parks, but can you imagine a park department without parks? Parks are for our park department. So that's the kind of activity we did, and we rolled that out in April. And so that's what the budget has been based on. And so most departments have untouchable activities, and then they have touchable activities. in the social media town hall that happened on June 21st, we talked about a lot of those untouchable activities. So you'll see on the next page here, some of the things we talked about. We talked about the fire response model. The fire department considers responding to emergency calls as being untouchable. But they consider responding to non-emergency calls as not being untouchable. And so we talked about that. School resource officers. The police department considers beat patrol to be untouchable, but not school resource officers. So we talked about new models for that. On the animal shelter, the police department and the city council concurred that responding to animal control calls in the field and conducting enforcement is untouchable. Operating an animal shelter is not. So you got kind of, this is a thinking. Library branches, we talked about people's library branch usage, how that might change in light of the new location downtown. We talked about code enforcement and then street sweeping. Some of our street sweeping, you might not know this, is actually mandated by federal agreement, others isn't. That went over the idea that we would only do one round of street sweeping per year, went over like a box of rocks. So as long as we're able to balance the budget, thankfully, hopefully we will have, I have plenty of trees, just like all of you. Hopefully we will still have the same levels of street sweeping, but if we're not able to balance the budget, that's something we'll look at.
I don't understand though how I was hearing some chat that they were going to cut it in two. Right now, our streets are cleaned once a year. I mean, stop and explain me, but you know, it just doesn't make sense to me. How do you cut in half what they're only doing? Are they only going to do like one side of the street?
No,
I mean,
actually, a lot of streets in areas with a lot of foliage are swept 3 times a year. So, and a lot of times, arterials are swept at night, 3rd shift, and residential streets are swept 1st shift. Now, you might live in a neighborhood where they're not sweeping more than once a year, but I encourage you to log on to the Public Works website. They list when streets are swept.
No, I really see this. And another thing about it is I think that they need to notify people when the streets will be swept so they can get their cars on.
That's why they have the website.
I mean, I'm running up and down the street.
Yeah, I understand what you're talking about. Yeah. So, yeah, I saw one of those too. Yeah, she said that they paved her street and they didn't see the cars didn't get moved. I saw one of those too. I'm like, people. Yeah.
Oh, no, I literally run down the street and say, can you move your car? I mean, it's like Christmas or something when the street cleaner.
So here's a summary of the options. This first slide on 20, these are the things we talked about at the social media town hall. And then on 21, these are some other concepts that we've been talking about. So again, we're on the same calendar as the CIP. So it gets adopted on August 14th, and it should be posted online around July 16th. So if you all have any questions that I haven't covered, yes.
So the cable franchise fees, are we currently doing best practices for cities of our size in regards to what types are in our current contract with these service providers? Like for what services the franchise fees are accounted for? Because right now I believe it's only cable television, and so it doesn't cover the internet portion of it. Are other cities our size and like us mandating the franchise fees also cover the internet portion of it?
As far as I know, this is a question for our law department, and as far as I know, our law department works hard at collecting all the franchise fees that would be due to us. And as my understanding is that we have franchise agreements in place for everything that we are able to have them in place for. So, unfortunately, there's no golden.
There's another thing called an occupational tax, and now that you brought it up, I don't remember everything that covers, but that covers another half of what's here in Wichita. We are right now in the process of discussing how we can refine that to where it just covers everything and it's just one basic fee instead of occupation tax and a franchise fee. So that should get modernized this year. We're still talking about it.
the process. We prepare all these forms, that we give to the county clerk, and that's the process of certifying the budget. So each tip is certified each year. Each budget is reviewed each year. So, sorry. When did that start? Since forever. Yes.
Yeah, how you doing? Moving forward and looking at your current outlook in the future years, do we know how the new tariffs are going to affect our budget for the city? Have y'all factoring any of that into that? Because as a contractor myself, I'm dealing with the increase of lumber price, steel prices, and things like that. Some of your major projects have to deal with that. Are y'all budgeting money for that? Because I see how year after year your deficit has doubled. So, you know, I just want to be mindful of the city and spending money, how these new tariffs is going to affect your budget, period.
Yeah, that's really good. There's been a lot. The other thing that that's not factored into our budget, I would imagine that would have more of an impact on the capital side. When we let bids for construction projects, that's probably when we would see the impact of that. The other thing everything's so dynamic right now, would be an understatement. The other thing is people have asked us about the sales tax agreement, the sales tax decision from the Supreme Court, and that's not bottled into the budget either because the state legislature actually needs to take action on that. But that's a good point about the tariffs. Yes?
Looking at your court fine, it looks like 2008, 2010, the court fine reached the peak of only 10.5 million. And now in 2016, it looks like it was back down to about 8 million. Can you tell me why the court fine is declining with much more crime on the streets now?
Yeah, it's just a function of citations. Court fines rates have actually been increased over that time, which is why they're a little bit level, but there are just a lot fewer citations going through the court system than there had been, at least through 2017, than we'd seen in the past, particularly with regards to traffic enforcement. So big decline in traffic enforcement in the court system. Yes.
Back to economic development just a minute. Just recently, front page of the paper, the city is giving $4 million to Spirit to build a 7-story building. The county's kicking in $6 million. Where do you put that in the budget? And these things that are just voted on weekly, how do you all of a sudden come up with money that's not in the budget?
Right, those are probably, most of those kind of agreements that he's referring to involve industrial revenue bonds or economic, they're tax abatements. So a tax abatement shows up in the budget because it lowers the tax while the abatement is in place. What you're doing is you say that the value of this property is here, we're gonna abate its taxes, and then after the abatement expires, there's an increase in tax revenue. We have, you'll see if you look at our 5-year forecast, there are some bumps up in property tax when abatements that are currently on the rolls expire. And then industrial revenue bonds, those are basically, they're servicing the bonds, but we're issuing them.
Well, I understood this to be an outright donation. And I probably would have voted for it because they create so much economic activity in terms of jobs. However, where do you come up with that money?
Right.
They wanted the money right now from both the city and the county.
I am not an economic development expert.
Where do I find one?
I know where to find some, and you're asking about the $4 million building, or $4 million Spirit incentive package.
Yes.
I will check in on that, and I will circle back with Julie, and she probably knows how to get in touch with you.
Okay.
Right? Does that sound good?
Yes.
All right.
I have a couple of questions or comments. I look here on starting on page 15 through 17. And this is good, it's on in writing here, but is this going to ever actually happen in Wichita?
What's that?
Hiring 21 new commissioners New 11 Division. And then I just looked at what happened to the fire department this last week. The people want, and I know what the city council is saying about Friday and core values. If we don't fund them, we are never going to improve that.
Well, the idea behind shifting that mill from the debt service fund to the general fund, it's not just to fill the hole in the general fund, it's to implement this plan. So it's my understanding that they've, have posted those recruit positions right now on our hiring website. And that, they're serious about implementing this, so, and we've been serious about modeling it into the budget, so.
So yes, it will happen.
You said it's gonna happen with when?
Well, it's a matter of finding the recruits, I think, is the key piece.
Isn't there a graduating class like next week or something, and then there's
So
another
that's one class, and then this one is for another class. But
Yeah.
that class started off at 30, and then they dropped down to 21.
That's difficult.
So it's keeping the recruits that we do try to get on the force in the actual class.
Because I just, to me in Wichita, coming out of Birmingham, Alabama, our priority here for our people is not what it should be. I listened to John talk about economic development, that is good, we need it. But all of a sudden, when something like that pops up, money is available. But to fill a pothole out here permanently on any of these streets, that is not permanent. But guess who's making money off that pothole in the street? Our businesses. I don't know how many people realize when you hit a pothole, not only will your pizza spill over, your front end of your automobile may be wrecked too.
Do you know about the pizza that he's referring to? Okay, the Domino's pizza.
Yeah.
And the gentleman in the back had a question too.
Yes, and I'm sure you already know this, but without the rooftops and housing development, you're not going to generate these additional taxes to fund this deficit. So can we hear more about what the strategy is in the city for that particular growth?
To grow, to have more housing?
Yes.
Okay. So I think that just overall, I mean, we are in an interesting place because with the CIP, there's a priority, and with the, what used to be called the comp plan, the priority in it really is not just continuing to grow at our fringes, but investing at the areas that we've already developed. And that's a change in strategy for Wichita, to also be in, you know, making, I think someone said, my neighborhood doesn't look as good as it used to. And so, hopefully, I mean, things like this don't happen overnight, but it really is a different strategy than what we've been seeing in the CIP in the past. So, yes.
You've got 22 million for your aquatics master plan. We've been having an aquatics master plan for, I don't know how long, and nothing gets done except shut down pools. And we haven't come up with we've got Edgemore Pool, we've got some Adams Pool.
Right.
When is something going to happen?
Right.
You will have some answer before the end of August.
What?
You will have an answer before the end of August.
Well, we were told that last week.
Yeah.
And we were told this happened.
So what happened was, there was an answer given, so I made a recommendation for the McAdams Pool, and that was voted down. So at that point, we had an answer, and then it was rejected. So now we went back to really focus on looking at and evaluating the McAdams area for the viability of the pool, which at the moment looks really good. But that will come back before the council here in the next couple weeks. When that happens, again, I'll let everybody know about that and the plan that has been put in place from there. It's still being talked about. There's still a lot of discussion about that, but you'll have an answer pretty soon.
Well, that falls under the category of in the parks of it, right?
Right.
And we've got according to the paper, we've got the problem with the golf courses.
Right.
I think maybe it's time to have an audit.
Well,
What's going on?
Yeah, the golf, so he said he has some questions for all, because his voice is coming this way, not that way. He has questions about when things are moving forward with the aquatics plan, and then about the problems with golf. And I have to say, I did a lot of research research initially on the aquatics master plan just because we needed to put together a lot of financial information. I have to say I've never been, we do a lot of research in the budget office. I've never been involved with an issue that's had as many sides as the aquatics master plan. It has everything. It's incredibly complex. The financials are difficult. The history is difficult. The geography is difficult. There's just a lot going on with the aquatics master plan. And so there is a consultant that's an architect on your contract, but you have to tell the architect what to build.
Excuse me.
Right, and so that's the city council's decision. So
Where did that happen?
that was on in April.
So we
maybe?
voted, it was either late April or early May to hire a consultant to design the pool.
Don't we have the architect?
And then the second thing.
I was not notified about that.
So the RFP went out in early February, or actually, I think
To
January,
do what?
to design all of our pools in the aquatic system.
That's where the 22 million is.
So it was posted online, it was emailed out.
And then the second thing he asked about was golf. About all the articles in the paper about golf and sustainability of the golf course system.
Why you just moved on?
Well,
You just heard
I think that
about
his
that
answer
one.
was adequate.
Well, still, I don't know, I've been hearing a lot of things about the McAdams pool, which I didn't even know about going to go vote until like the day before. You know, they didn't get that word out enough to vote between McAdams and Edgemore pool, you know?
Well, he was referring to the contract for the
I know what
consulting
he's
services.
talking about too, but it's all in the same thing. You know, either the design or the vote or what pool get it, it wasn't enough word, time to get out.
So I would have to ask you for more input. So let me tell you what I did. I talked to churches, 32 of them. I talked to neighborhood associations. I sent out in our newsletter. We talked at our district advisory board for 3 months saying that it would happen in June. We talked at our breakfast for 3 months saying it would happen in June. At the June breakfast, I said it would be in 2 weeks. I knocked a few doors. I couldn't get the whole district, of course. And, of course, social media. I know not everybody's on social media. So between that and asking pastors to put this out, that's what I did. So if you have any other suggestions, I'd be happy to do it.
I don't know, I guess my church don't care.
So I'm happy to do more. Just let me know what I need to do.
See, that's what I was just wondering, because I didn't hear nothing, I just heard from somebody else that goes somewhere else and, you know.
So next time it comes up, I'm gonna do the same thing.
Okay, I'm trying to wrap my mind around can you hear me? Okay, I'm trying to wrap my mind around why we go out of town and looking for people that we already have in town, and if you have, are our local people contacted about any of these things?
Usually when RFPs are issued, and also it's the same with the request for bids, those are posted on the purchasing website. So it's public information, that's our process.
So the McAfee company is non-existent?
The way it works is you would have to, people go to the website and they see it. A lot of times I know there's these construction bulletins that read the bids that are available and then send them out to the construction community. I think that's one way the information gets out.
Before you move on to the dog, am I understanding correctly when I see $79 million, is that money that's just actually gonna sit there until something is done with the West Bank?
On the West Bank. So the West Bank is a little, the West Bank, the baseball stadium it would involve a couple of different kinds of funding. So I think it's a STAR district and maybe a TIF district and things like that. There's a limited amount of general obligation that full faith and credit bonding that would be involved in the project.
Okay, so there's no tips involved or
There
anything
is a
like that
tip.
as far as aquatics. What I'm saying is that inequity, you got $22 million for aquatics, $79 million is just gonna sit there just in case,
But
you
it's-
know, I just don't, you know, I'm not an accountant.
No, I understand.
Or economist, but, as far as being able to move those monies around, you know,
Right.
the baseball team is gone, so you're just gonna sit there on that money when, you know, so you answered my question.
Right,
Yes,
well,
it's
that's it.
sitting there.
I think someone asked the question about why the debt service fund spikes, why that RAF spikes in 2022. We actually don't have the money until we issue the bonds. So the money isn't sitting, and it's not sitting there per se, it's that we have
So
the
you have not
capacity.
issued a bond, this is a budget line item.
Right, so we have the capacity, if things were to move forward with the stadium, we've reserved the capacity to move forward with that. So, the aquatics master plan line item of being that much in general obligation bonds is actually a pretty sizable project in the CIP for a facilities project. Are you ready to talk about golf a little, or do we wanna move on? You had a question about golf, Saturn? Golf is something that, we've been working on golf for a long time. I think there was some study of it maybe 2012, and then we had a great weather year after it, and things were good. Nationwide, there's been a decline in golf rounds. Golf just isn't nearly as popular as a sport as it used to be. And in Wichita, with 5 golf courses, we actually have more golf capacity than we have golfers at this point. So that's why we're in the unfortunate situation that we are. Yes.
I'm curious, I know that they're, wanting to redo Navson's Park.
Which one?
Napster? Yes, thank you. But, in the area that I live, I'm kind of where Kellogg and Hillside exchanges are there.
Yeah.
It's a mess. And so these lots that are to the side of where the roadways are really not kept right. I mean, I go out to police in about every 2 days myself, and I swear to you, this is the truth. I pick up anything from a hypodermic needle to a car bumper. I mean, it's pretty bizarre. And then another part of this is that as they improve these things downtown, it causes a lot of these homeless people to consequently come into our neighborhood, and then they're not mowing these lawns. They can be, and I'm not kidding you, sometimes waist high or higher. I actually had a Bigfoot sighting one night, because I've seen the grass moving, and I know it's not a raccoon, and what's happening is that these people are actually camping in these high grasses. That's frightening.
Yeah.
We called the police, Officer Adams is a jewel of an officer. I can't tell you how helpful he's been. But he encountered this man. Not only did he got his blood pressure checked, his heart monitored, to be sure that he was safe enough to be camping. And I said, wait a minute, we didn't buy our homes next to a campsite.
Yeah.
We would know that we would have, people that we don't know, doing whatever.
Right.
That is uncommon.
Have you been in contact with the homeless outreach team?
Well, this is what I'm gonna tell you, because they said, normally that they would see if there was room at a homeless shelter for these poor souls, but if there is not, then they are entitled, they can camp on city property.
Yeah,
I
I've not.
camp between my sidewalk and the street.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, as far as that's a little different interpretation of the camping ordinance than what I've heard in the pros.
I pushed it further and found out they actually do have to have a camping license. Because I said, no, this just, he said, oh, well, they just like the fresh air of camping under the stars. I said, well, when this gets out, it's gonna be like, y'all come, and all College Hill's gonna be, this campground. So can they camp in College Hill Park? No, but they can camp in our neighborhoods.
So I would recommend talking to the homeless outreach team. They have a little more expertise when it comes to that. That would be Nate Schweidel,
Well, but
right?
really the problem, how that's happening is that, it's not maintained. If they would mow this stuff, they completely miss a whole mowing cycle.
Right, and then as far as the mowing, I recommend talking to the park department. Okay.
I've chatted with all those boys, believe me, I think they know me on a first name basis now, it's like, oh no, Debbie's calling.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just, it seems so obvious to me when these areas are not maintained like that. And this is why I'm picking up the trash I am, because people are thinking, oh, this is a depressed area, people aren't maintaining it. So I'll just contribute my, you know, car bumper or lunch sack or whatever, and then I go out to pick it up, and I have to pay for my trash. You know, sometimes my trash is so full of the stuff that's in that field that I don't have room for my trash, you know, and that just doesn't seem right to me.
So I'm gonna give you my card after this, so please always reach out to
I
me when that
appreciate
happens.
that very much, thank you.
So in the respective time, it's almost 10:30. We still have another presentation. We're going to move on to the housing presentation. If you do have questions, please write them down. When they get done, I'm happy to stand here and talk to you about all of that, okay?
Good morning. Can you hear me? All right, all right. I first want to thank Councilmember Johnson for this opportunity to be able to talk about one of our newest programs under the housing umbrella. So my name is Michelle Poe Rucker, and I'm the program manager for the Wichita-Sedgwick County Community Action Partnership. That's a mouthful. So our acronym is WISCAP. Say that. All right. WISCAP is a division of the Housing and Community Services Department, and all of the services that you probably already know that we provide under the Housing and Community Services Department umbrella are for low to moderate income families. And we're located on the 10th floor of City Hall. So WISCAP is one of 8 community action agencies in the state of Kansas, and our service area is Wichita and Sedgwick County. We receive federal funding, Community Services Block Grant, or CSBG, from the Department of Health and Human Services, and it passes through Topeka, Kansas Housing Resources Corporation. The 8 community action agencies, we all receive the CSBG funds to help alleviate the causes and conditions of poverty in the communities that we provide services in. And so we work with individuals and families to help them alleviate the barriers that are keeping them from becoming financially independent or self-sufficient. The City of Wichita has been a community action agency for over 30 years. So we have received the CSBG funds for over 30 years to provide workforce development services and placement services to the low-income people of Wichita and Sedgwick County. We apply for an annual funding grant. That's a little over $1 million for this division. But in addition to applying for that grant and receiving it to help to work with our adult workforce development program, WISCAP was awarded a $30,000, which isn't a whole lot, of grant funds to fund a job training program for youth ages 18 to 23 who are exiting or aging out of foster care. The mission of that program, and we call it the Youth Employment Training Program 3, so yet a 3, we work with acronyms with federal funding. But our mission is to assist youth who have aged out of foster care, become skilled and empowered to create opportunities for personal and professional growth. This program aligns with the city's comprehensive housing policy to maintain housing affordability, and it also fits into WISCAP's goal to alleviate the barriers and conditions of poverty by providing these services. By providing the services that we do to this population, it's a vulnerable population, and 21st century skills, youth become eligible earners at higher wages, so they will earn higher wages so that housing remains affordable to all in the city of Wichita and Sedgwick County. Program services include them having opportunities to get post-secondary vocational training, and then we help place them and retain them on jobs. And we look for competitive jobs in emergency industries that are in need of a skilled workforce. So we're not just talking about fast food industries or that. We're talking about those who are needing skilled workforce. Opportunities for this group of youth include individualized case management with a family development specialist. So they're actually matched one-on-one with a counselor, with a case management specialist who will work with them one-on-one to get the goals established and met. We will introduce the youth to employment skills training, financial literacy, and other soft skills or essential skills training. Once this vulnerable population exit out of foster care, they don't know, most of them don't know what to do. They don't have the skills necessary to even apply for jobs or look for jobs. And so we help them with that. We also will connect the youth to supportive services, affordable housing resources, and benefits leveraged from community partnerships. Eligibility guidelines. Again, they must be 18 to 23 and have exited or will be exiting or aging out of foster care real soon. They must be a Wichita or Sedgwick County resident. And then income guidelines with all of our federal programs. They must meet the income guidelines at 125% of federal poverty level. And I do have brochures, council member, that I'll give to you. And you can, I don't have as many as who's here. This is a good crowd. But you can make copies of them. Now, when we applied for the program, before we even applied, we did a lot of research. We talked to the agencies that work the most with youth, especially the youth aging out of foster care. And so we knew that we would be able to get the number of people that we were going to be able to provide with only $30,000. We anticipated providing services to 15 to 20 youth that would meet the criteria. But as of today, in working with all the agencies that we are aware of, and Logan is going to talk about all the other outreach that we have done, we have received 6 referrals, and there are only 4 of the 6 who are actually enrolled in our program. So we know there is a need in the city of Wichita and even within Sedgwick County. But we are having a difficult time receiving referrals or getting people to even walk through our doors who would meet this criteria. I'm here today to make a plea to you and appeal to you to help us. The grant deadline for this $30,000 is September 30th, 2018, which means that if we do not spend the $30,000, the money will not be available to us. I can say we're going to give it back. We have to give it back after September 30th, as of that date. And so we have room to help more youth. The youth that we are working with right now are really doing a good job. One is on a medical track, and so she came to us as a certified nurse assistant. We're providing training dollars for her to become a certified medical assistant. And once she achieves that goal, she wants to be an LPN, and we'll be able to help her with that. And so the youth that we are working with are really doing a great job, but we just need more so we can provide these services to the number of people that we can with this grant. I'm going to turn it over to Logan Bradshaw, who also works in housing. She's a management analyst, and she'll talk to you a little bit about the outreach and the marketing that we've done so far.
Hi everyone, as Michelle said, my name is Logan Bradshaw and I'm a management analyst with the Department of Housing and Community Services. I don't get to do a lot of work with Michelle's programs, but I do work on marketing for our department, and so that includes collaboration with our communications team at the City of Wichita to try and get the word out about some of our programs. We kicked off our marketing campaign about 2 weeks ago, and some activities that we have in our plan so moving forward would be to come to these public meetings. So we've been to District Advisory Board 3, we're coming to this meeting, and we're getting the word out in some other district newsletters about our this program. We are working on developing a interview for running on City 7. I don't know if you guys tuned into City 7. But we're also working on an interview to take place with our program coordinator. Her name is Shireen Thompson, and one of our current program participants has volunteered her time to come and be a part of that interview. So we're really hopeful that with running on City 7 every other day or so, that more people will hear about the program. We're also going to attend a mayor's news briefing next week on July 12th, I think it is, on Thursday. And so all of the media outlets will be there that regularly attend those media briefings, and so we're hoping to potentially get some additional press coverage. And we're also considering reaching out on social media sources. We don't have that included in our plan just yet, but we're here to ask for your help. I don't know if you guys have organizations or businesses or neighborhood associations that have Facebook pages or anything like that. that you'd be willing to help spread the word about this. But we do ask that if you do, to let us know about it so that the City of Wichita channels can also share that information too and increase our reach. And then other than that, we're also just are here to ask you for your help in helping us spread the word. Because if, I don't know how many people are here today, maybe 40 or so. If you guys tell at least one person, that, broadens our reach to 80 people. And if that person tells someone, word of mouth can also be really, really beneficial. So at this point, we'll take some questions or comments. I saw your hand first.
Yes, so first I want to give a shout out to Superintendent Alicia Thompson, who is watching online. She sent me a text message. So we are willing and able to help with that promotion effort, especially when school ramps up.
So Ben serves on the school board for District 1.
Yes. And actually, we will be contacting USD 259 next week. We just got a tip on that. And so we'll be working with them to see what we can do, what they can do to help us.
Yeah.
Get some more youth involved.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I saw your hand next, so.
Okay, you said you had like 4 to 6 referrals for youth right now?
We received 6, and only 4 of the 6 we've been able to make contact, and they are actually enrolled.
What is your capacity that you're looking for, your maximum capacity?
About 15. And it really depends on the amount of the training that we're able to provide. And so at least 15 to 20, but definitely 15. And so we have space for at least another 11.
Okay. I just need your business card.
I have some. Okay.
All this in the news about the kids coming out of foster care. Can I ask you a question? You do not have a list of kids that's in foster care now?
We do not have that. We don't have access to that list. But we're working with agencies such as the Department of Children and Families, St. Francis Community Services, and there's multiple agencies that we have been in contact and making multiple presentations to.
Okay, now, if I'm right, if I'm hearing this right, it's housing for some of these kids that's coming out as soon as they turn 18 years old. Is it housing there available for them? Do you have some housing, or the apartments, or what?
We don't have them already set up, but one of the first things we do when we get them into our program, get them enrolled, we make sure that they are on the wait list. So we help them make application for housing.
Does it seem like we're spinning our wheels in one big circle? The right hand don't know what the left hand is doing, and we're keeping this information, but the people that need the help are not getting it. Because this is the first time I've heard about this program, and I'm pretty active in my community.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, when we did our research before we even applied, we knew we would not have difficulty in getting the kids into the program.
Can I address his, I'm sorry, I was going to address his question about housing. St. Francis Services are starting a program of housing that population at the convent of Sisters of St. Joseph congregation. So they're moving that program into the convent, and they'll be housing them, a certain number of folks there at the convent.
You got an idea how many it would be?
I don't remember exactly. I don't want to say because I might forget, but it's going to be in the convent. The sisters no longer live in the convent. So I wanted to know, you talked about some of the different things you're trying to do, but have you ever thought about sending letters to the churches?
We have done that.
You've sent them to
We
the
have done that.
churches?
We've had a mailing of over 100.
What about the senior centers?
Don't think we've done that, but again, we've done the mailing to the churches, which generally there is a church that someone attends, and so we've asked the pastors to announce it in the churches and to post the bulletin. But we haven't directly to the senior centers, and we'll do that. We will do that. Thank you. Yes,
Are
ma'am.
you available to make presentations?
We have made, yes, to answer your question, yes.
Neighborhood and senior groups?
Yes, we are. We have made presentations all over the city of Wichita. Usually it's by request, or if we know about them, then we contact them and have done the same. But that's why we're here to ask you to help us. So if there's someone or some group or agency or that you want us to make a presentation to, we can do that.
McAdams and Northeast.
Okay, give me contact information. Sometimes when we make contact, we don't get our foot in the door. So if you can set it up for us, and I know you real well, Ms. Stone. If you can set it up for us, or give me someone who will listen to me, and we'll be able to get something scheduled. That will work. Okay. program, this $30,000 is for this program. That would be another grant, another pot of money. But we have gotten some comments on youth, even like 16 and 17. But this program is not for that. As far as the youth at King County Foster Care who have access to the education, that's not the group we're looking at, which is why we went through the Department of Children and Families. They have a huge independent living program that provides services to the group that you're talking about. We're looking at those persons who are not, who have exited and they didn't want to be a part of that program, and they're just kind of out there. Yeah, because we can't double dip. We can't use federal funds twice. And so, I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying as far as their training that they'd like to take. Okay, there is a choice for that.
If I could speak toward that, in a lot of situations, when children are coming out of foster care or being adopted, having that type of college education that you're speaking about is not exactly an option in their mind. Because immediately coming out of their house, they have to figure out exactly where they're going to live next. So sometimes having a 2-year or 4-year college education is a bit out of reach. You know, some of them may have made a bad decision coming up because of the situation that they were in. So programs like this would be in place to help those particular kids, as opposed to the ones that come out having that strong mind toward, hey, I want to be adopted. Maybe that's not something that they feel that they can aspire to. It's important to help those others.
A very important point. Thank you for sharing that. And that has happened with some of the youth that we've talked to. Our first youth that we enrolled into the program, actually, we have a ad going in the Community Voice, and we have for the last several editions. I think this one coming up will be our last one. But the first person responded to us through that ad. And so again, we've been doing a lot of marketing, a lot of outreach to the community to get a response to this program.
I know that this is not your area, but when I was working with the Housing Authority, one of my main concerns, and I voiced it several times, was that people actually do not know how to live in a house and take care of a house. Yeah. And all that money that is expended to remodel or rehab houses is a waste when we don't have a program to teach people how to clean and how to. So I just wanted to voice that. I know that's not your area, but that's needed in public housing. That's really needed.
With our
the only visit that I had, I was warned from the office that if I went on a visitation with someone, not to sit down. And they invited me to sit down. I sat on the sofa and there were roaches everywhere. You know, and people just don't know how to clean their homes. They don't know how to take care. And that's not the child, it's a parent who doesn't know.
There is an educational component in our public housing, though. And we also have another program, Housing First, that works directly with the homeless and helps them do the things that we might take for granted as far as taking care of homes and that. But there is an educational component.
I'm not sure it was in place when I was there.
And it may not have been, but it is now.
Additionally, building off of that, with our rental assistance demonstration program, not trying to open this door because this isn't what we're here to talk about.
No.
But basically what it is a substantial rehabilitation, a $60 million rehabilitation of all of our public housing units. With that, our developer has agreed to help provide extensive training because these are going to be brand new public housing, basically, built from the studs up. There's going to be a lot of education, and a lot of community partners have come in and said that they're willing to help us train. And so, you know, hopefully we kind of start reversing those habits.
One more question, and then we have to move on. Mr. Barnes.
So I guess my question is, that 18 to 23, that's staring you in the face situation right then, leaving out of here. But I would think that with all the youth homes that we have in here, people operating in here, and people who even do the foster care in here, that you would be approaching those. We got about 6-7 page stapled together, youth homes for young men and women that have been placed in here, some different homes. It's like you'd be contacting those individuals who run those homes.
And we have.
And do those things.
The persons that we were aware of, we have been in contact with some of those. Generally, once we talk to them and talk about the 18 to 23 or whatever the other components may be, they don't have youth that they can refer to that would meet the criteria. So we have made that contact. But if you know of others and you want to give me that list, I would
You're waiting
take it
till they're ready to go out the door. Those kids are in these homes, and some of those are 15, 16-year-olds, and you start making them aware
Right.
coming down the pike, and these are some options.
Right, right, which is another program, another pot of money. There's nothing we can do to actually help them at this point. But we are aware that there are youth, and that there should be some kind of transitional program with 16 and 17-year-olds.
Is there a program that actually helps them with the independent skills and the social skills?
Yes.
When they're 14 and 15?
Oh, I don't know.
Before they get up to
Right.
18, while they're in the system?
Right.
I mean.
From what I understand from DCF and St. Francis, they do have transitional programs built into their programs.
Is there anything about when these kids get into these homes and whatever that there's expectations of them, like, I mean, some kind of an incentive maybe that.
So that's not really a Wichita housing deal.
Right.
That's up to the individual person who either owns or runs that home.
My point here is that, these are very young individuals that are going to be influencing even the next generation that they have children in. And I'm firmly believing that you can't teach what you haven't learned. So someone needs to learn it somewhere.
So that really is a state level conversation we should have. I used to work in several group homes, and if it were not for people like Ms. Mack at New Vision, those skills aren't taught. When I worked at the Salvation Army, it was up to staff to really teach.
When they're like 3 years old, they're taught.
But that's something that, so in this state, we don't really like regulations. But it's something that should be regulated, that these kids have to learn these skills, but we don't like them. So, before we get on state and other levels, let's bring it back to Wichita. This is an election year. Please talk to candidates about those issues. So, before we wrap up, there's one group that wants to talk to you about a survey that's going on, and I'll get to them in a second. We had a lot of really good conversations today, so I want to give you a few updates before we just have a conversation. Our neighborhood grant program is still going. We have not given out $124,000 yet, so you still have an opportunity to apply. Those grants are up front, and those grants are online as well. Again, it is income-based, so those grants are available for tree trimming, tree removal, sidewalk repair, special projects. One group has done a community garden. That was a special project.
You can see that on the front page of the Uptown newsletter, by the way.
On the front page of that newsletter. So just some things to think about. Again, income-based. The grant, the paper application is available up front. I want to encourage you, if you are thinking about it, to come up front and grab one, because we will contact you. If you've taken one, just to make sure you follow up with it. If you download it, we won't know about it, and you may or may not turn that back in. We want to make sure that that application gets filled out and turned in before we run out of money. Okay? Mr. Barnes.
So I'm a little unclear now. I know it's income based on assuming that's individual, but then I hear you say groups.
Yeah, so there was a group who has a community garden. An individual applied for the grant. It's a neighborhood association.
You just need to find somebody who meets the income guideline, but the work doesn't necessarily have to be at his residence.
No, in the application, they talked about a neighborhood association community garden. This individual applied for it, so it was a special project. It wasn't for that individual. So we approved it on the committee because of the special project and the impact to the community.
And it's had a huge impact.
Where was that located?
Amazing. It's at 3rd and Chautauqua. 3rd is not a street anymore, it's a drainage ditch. And there was a city-owned property there that got condemned, because they didn't maintain it.
Okay.
And we lost a good neighbor.
Yeah.
But that lot sat vacant. And we have come to an agreement with the city of Wichita to rent that lot, I think, for $1 a year.
Wow.
And we put, since there was already water on the property, we are paying for water. Got that set up.
That's another thing, if young people don't know how to raise their own food, and I mean.
They're welcome to come and have a fun.
Now they have a place to go.
Yeah, it's a good experience for them to have respect.
We have had youth at our park helping set this up, plant. East High provided us with a bunch of kids. So yeah, the kids are involved.
All right, just a few more updates. We've all seen that we've had a recent increase in violence with young people. The city of Wichita is trying to also intervene in that. So across the street at Lynette Woodard, on Wednesday evenings from 5 to 7,
We have free open gym, food, music, fun. It's a safe space for them to be at. Law enforcement will be there as well, not only for security, but again, building that community engagement. And then starting this month at McAdams, on Friday nights, it'll be open from 8 to 10 p.m. Again, food, fun, music. So we are trying to get as many young people there as possible. It is free. We want them to be there. Again, it is safe. And this is something constructive for them to do. There are also 2 other open rooms at McAdams. So we'll bring in community partners to teach different skills. If you know somebody who wants to help, whether it's music or cooking or something like that, feel free to reach out to us. Let us know. We'd love to have you there. Again, we all have to do our part to address these issues. These young people who are getting into these situations, it's not an us and them issue or over their issue. It's all of our issue. And if we all don't get involved, then we start losing our young people more than what we've seen. We've got 29 homicides already in 2018. We're in July. So we have to do something now so we can reduce that number and hopefully end that number. There's a lot of other efforts going on to address that with some community groups that we're working on. But one of the main things I continue to say is, as Officer Villegas said earlier, is rebuilding that village, getting more involved in our community, knowing our neighbors, knowing who's across the street from us, knowing whose kids are whose. When we see something suspicious, we can see something and say something and call the number, but we can also address our young people. When I see young people going down the street, if it looks like something funny, hey, what y'all doing? What's going on?
It used to happen.
Yeah, it used to happen. It used to happen to me. A few times when I was walking down the street with a stick to go mess with somebody's tree, somebody would say, what are you doing? Put that stick down. I'm going to call your mom. But we don't see that as much nowadays. And I think we need to get back to that. So that's something else going on. One second. One second. And my last update, again, for those who are asking about the aquatics plan, that will be coming back before the council here in the next couple of weeks. Please be sure, I gave you all a brochure for a number of reasons. I have to get the back row. But please sign up for our newsletter. If you do have social media, follow us. We will put it out there when it comes up so you all know. But again, it's coming up in the next couple of weeks. Since it came to council the last time, we've made some progress. Again, we are focusing on McAdams. As we said from the bench, we wanted to make sure it was a viable area. We've gathered all the data that was requested by other council members. So we will bring that back to the bench here pretty soon. So when that does come, please let me know what you think about it. It will be out, again, for public. You'll be able to see what's proposed. Please give feedback, and I'd love to hear from you on that. So outside of that, I'll open up for a few questions before we get to the survey.
I would just like to see more minority contractors involved in projects that are here in the city.
So through the National League of Cities, the real initiative, Race, Equity, and Leadership, the city of Wichita is engaged in the community, and we're looking at all areas where the city engages with the community. That's one of the areas to see the impact being made on what we're currently doing. So minority contracting, what are our current numbers? What is our current goal? Is that good enough? Are we effective? All of those questions are being asked right now. We're reviewing that. Very soon, we're going to call a community meeting. We have a real internal executive team that I'm a part of, and we're going to reach out to the community, and we're going to have this kind of a group session. We're going to lay out what we're doing as a city. That way, the community can hold us accountable to that. We're also going to ask what we could do better, and then we're going to see what we can do together. So then what can the community do as well? So it's all about accountability to make sure we do what we're supposed to, what we're saying, and then what we can do as a community to improve all of those numbers. One thing I did learn about recently, Commissioner Ranzel reached out. They have this minority contracting business presentation that happens randomly. It's not a set schedule, where they bring in people of color and women who own businesses to present to the city, the county, and the school board their services. And they have an opportunity to gain services. When I was invited to that, I thought it was great. I just think it should be more often. So we're also talking about how we can team up again and make that happen more often so we have more opportunities as well.
Who do they invite?
So the county handled that, so I didn't have that list. But when we get involved, things will be a little different.
Because the damn can't be a no the
Yes.
only one.
So I don't remember all of those businesses. I have a list at my city hall office. But Miss Breon was there with, Jennifer Breon was there. There was another janitorial business there. Several people who made city uniforms. So for like our those shiny deals the construction workers wear, they were there. Reflective. And there was a few other businesses. So again, I think if we have, because I get a bulletin of things that go out sometimes early. If we have that set up as a meeting, that might help us out a lot more. But we're in talks with all of that right now.
Can I make a presentation now?
One second, Mr. Barnes.
I think that's a good thing, but it random needs to be, we kind of post when we got a regular meeting and a way of communicating that. Of those minorities that they contact and reach out to, how many of those are black businesses?
In the room that day, there were 3, but again, the county led that effort. That wasn't a city-led effort. So right now, to me, that was a great idea and something I think that we as a city can also do. I've heard that we do that, but once we get through this process, that'll be a part of probably some of our recommendations. Mr. Mayor.
How long has that been happening, though? I'm sorry, how long has that been happening?
I don't know how long.
My name is Charles Mack. I started an architectural office in this town in 1963. I have won more design awards than most other architectural firms in the state. And I'm not on anybody's list to get notified about a damn thing around here. But I came here this morning, I want to talk about that. I came here this morning to talk about a couple of very positive things that I'd like the district one to pay attention to. Linwood Sexton, some of you may remember, years ago used to have a luncheon over at Spears Restaurant at 2 o'clock on a Thursday. After Linwood died, a bunch of us old guys just kind of kept it going. That includes Cleo Wilson and Margaret Stone, Charlie Gill, and Rick Gooch and myself. And last Thursday, I presented a proposal to them. I said, I want to throw this at you guys and see if it makes any sense. Because all of us at one time or another, whether we work for the city or whether we've done projects for the city, all kinds of things. All the problems that you're discussing in here, I've heard them for years. And I know how they get through them, don't do them. We elect marvelous young people like this. The first one was Price Woodard. Price wanted weeks to try to get the city council, for him to convince the other city council members to pass a fair housing ordinance. We thought we had it done. So that morning when they came in, I was the only black person sitting in the council. Price walked by and just frowned at me. Walt Keeler, who was on the board, read a 5-page article about why it wasn't necessary for his brother's keeper. And they voted down the housing ordinance. That was after Price had believed that all of them had given him the good word, which I'm worried about them doing for you. So Rip comes along. Marvin's worked down there for years. Val and Jenny Jackson and I did all kinds of things. We took 50 women off of welfare one day. One day. Gave 100% health care. Trained them in our factory to build houses. One day. What I came here this morning for, I want you to consider, and I passed a little map around. And that map is going to show McAdams Park and the tennis courts in blue. I'd like to propose that we ask the city to vacate Ohio between 14th and 15th so we can add more tennis courts and create a full tennis center. That tennis center on July the 28th and 29th is the McAdams Open Tennis Tournament. It has been going on for 30 years. We have kids and grown people come from all over the Midwest. Dallas, Houston, Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Kansas City, Omaha, Wichita. 2 young men from Wichita played in the National ATA Tennis Tournament in San Diego, California. 2 young men from Wichita played each other for the national title. Okay? That's how long and how successful this has been. So what we're asking for is to create a complete tennis center adjacent to the pool, and we can add another 8 or 9 tennis courts. Right now, the tournament is half being played at Wichita State's campus. Now, what does that mean for the neighborhood? Nothing. So, to motivate our kids to doing all kinds of things that they normally don't do, and if you were paying attention to the TV yesterday, it was split screen, with Venus on one side of the screen and Serena on the other, and America dominated world television with 2 young black women from the poorest neighborhood in this country. So don't tell me what can't be done out of 67214. I want you to take this on and recommend that we close Ohio and add tennis courts and a tennis center. Now, that's a little project that I was talking about. This, from 14th to 15th. From 14th to 15th. Essentially what it is, it's a street that runs in front or now in back of Leovicha School. Ohio used to be the front entrance to Leovicha School. The front entrance to Leovicha School has now moved over to Wabash. So what I'm saying is if we vacate Ohio, we add more tennis courts and a tennis center. We've done this at the park in Dallas. My daughter who runs our Dallas office did that a couple, 3 or 4 years ago and added everything else to a budget for that park for about $2.5 million. That's why I keep trying to find out what this $4 million budget at McAdams is. I don't know. But anyway, years ago, at one of those national tennis tournaments, was in New Orleans, and this fellow came in, and we introduced ourselves to each other, and he said, "My name is Gordon Parks." I said, "I'm Charles McAfee, and I know your older brother Clifford." He said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Wichita." He said, "Oh." So that night, Gordon and his grandson and I went to dinner. I said, "Gordon, I just finished a museum at Wichita State University. I'd like for you to come do a one-man show." He said, "I'm never coming back to Kansas. I'm never coming back to Kansas." The reason for that was he came to Kansas to do the movie The Learning Tree, and when he got to Fort Scott, they told him he couldn't even stay in the hotel. So anyway, I kept talking to him. I got up, this was before cell phones, I got up and went to the phone, and I called Bobby Hunter, Professor Bobby Hunter. I said, "Bobby, I'm having dinner with Gordon Parks." He said, "Charles, you won't answer our letters, you won't answer our phone calls." I went back, I said, "Gordon, we can do second semester for you at Wichita State at the museum idea." He said, "You really want me to do that?" I said, "I really want you to do it." He came back and did it. In the meantime, he had on loan to the university for a permanent collection, almost 300 pictures that toured all over Europe and back. They ended up shipping them back to him in a vault. Then they had to buy them for another $500,000 what they paid for. In the meantime, I wrote a program called the Gordon Parks Creative Center at Wichita State University, Wichita, Kansas. What this was about was the various disciplines: filmmaking, photography, literature, poetry, and music. And end of every month, a national lecturer would come in and talk to these various disciplines to really give these kids a creative opportunity to see a guy who grew up in the plains in Kansas and what you could actually do coming out of this neighborhood. What I am proposing to you is that we propose to build this on the innovative campus at Wichita State University. I gotta have more than that if we're gonna do it. That's what it's about, and what I'm saying is, the reason the old guys came up with this was the frustration that we're worried about with you. We know how the game is played. That's right, you've already played it. And you know, Rip was here, and Rip says, read the last 3 pages of my book. He says, you know why I left politics. And I'm tired of sending our sacrificial lambs to the city and the county and come back with nothing. And frustration. And my daughters, who've gone to the 2 best colleges in architecture in the world, won't even come back. The last time we proposed on something from the city was the parking garage. We designed the biggest parking garage for the Atlanta airport. Put in our proposal, did not even get an interview. Okay? It cost us thousands of dollars to put these packages together for them to review. Not even get an interview. Okay? So the whole point I'm making, I'm not concerned about me anymore. I'm 85 years old, almost. But I'm concerned about those foster kids you're talking about. What we gotta do is save the mamas and daddies first. We gotta save the mamas and the daddies first. Mamas and daddies are the ones who keep them out of foster homes and will bring them on through the education they need. So it is important. I want you to have positive things to do. When I drive down 21st Street and I see Tops Restaurant closed for a while, I see Wings and Things closed for a while. I mean, there are 50 Mexican restaurants in town. How many black restaurants do you see? You can't go to the bank and borrow a damn dime. When I was president of NAACP, the 2 years, Fourth National Bank never loaned 1 nickel for anything in the black community in this town. And I want to tell you the other thing that bothers me. The police are doing the best job they can. But when the house that you live in is worth less than what it cost you to build, that's because the banks, the insurance companies, and the appraisers don't have us on their list for success. So I'm just saying to you, I want you to get this young man all the help he can get. Show up downtown. Do not leave him down there by himself. Okay? Just don't do that.
We start voting for people. We start voting for people. We need to vote.
Mr. McAfee, your wife was my teacher.
My teacher too.
My aunt was your secretary. Remember when you put that house up on Olive?
I'm sorry?
Remember when you built the house on Olive?
What's your point?
Right.
That's when he lost his business. That's when the downfall started. They didn't want him on Oliver.
I know that's right.
Yeah.
So before we get to your question, we have Horizontes. You all got a survey. I know many of you have filled it out, and let's learn more about Horizontes.
We need to vote. People out of our office.
Hi everybody, I'm Abby, and I'm from the Horizontes Project, as is Tadana over here, and Fernanda in the back. You probably already filled out the survey, and I'm not going to try to take up too much time here, but I just wanted to explain a little bit about our project. I'm kind of glad after all the lively discussion that we got saved for last, because a lot of the issues that have been brought up over the meeting are things that we talk about in the survey. We're a community art project, but we're also doing a lot of community engagement type stuff. This is mostly pertaining to people who live on the north side of Wichita, either like the historically African American, like Northeast neighborhood, or the historically Latino North End neighborhood. But it's concerning the community development projects that are going on, like redeveloping McAdams and Evergreen, and Nomar Theater and the Dunbar Theaters. So anyway, the survey is, what we're doing with that is we're trying to get some concrete data on what people who actually live in these neighborhoods and people who actually use these facilities want to see out of these development projects, because the money has been put towards it, but the decisions on what exactly is going to happen have not been made yet. And so we want to make sure that the people who actually live there get a say in what happens. So yeah, like I said, there's been a lot of things over this meeting that have been brought up that are in the survey. Things like question 8, does this neighborhood/community need more institutions involving people of color? And then, questions about what you think is important to have in your neighborhood or community versus what isn't. So yeah, I know there's a lot of people with a lot of interesting opinions in this room. So if you haven't filled out the survey yet, I really hope that you do. And if you don't, I printed off and stapled it myself, so please just leave it on the table and I'll come get it and give it to someone else. Does anybody have any questions?
Since District 1 covers further south, I'm just looking for responses from the core north and northeast areas, or are you looking for responses from other people that might live south of that?
We're primarily looking for responses from people who live on the north side of town. If you don't live in that area, but you use the facilities in question, so McAdams Rec Center and Park, Evergreen Rec Center and Park, or would be interested or have in the past frequented the Dunbar Theater or the Nomar Theater, then that would still apply to you. We mostly talk to people in those neighborhoods just because they're the closest to those development projects, so they're the people that are most likely to use those facilities. But anybody who uses them is welcome to fill out the survey, or if you have family who use them, etc. So, also, I've had a bunch of pins that I passed around. There should be 14 of them. If I'm missing any, I will let you down in the parking lot if you took it. Okay. Anything else? Thank you very much.
All right, so before we leave, if you have any questions, please think of them. And I'm going to tell you this. For our breakfast, please RSVP if you would like to eat. We always turn in the number of RSVPs first to who's making our breakfast, so we have enough available. If you don't RSVP, we may or may not have enough food for you.
Camila and my phone number and email are on those brochures that were passed out. Feel free to give us a call, email either of us, and we'll make sure it's covered.
So with that, we are over time. I am happy to still answer questions though. So I see 2. Are there any
I'll have to
other?
run to the paint. I'll be out to clean up.
I just want to give an update on 9th Street.
All right, we have an update on 9th Street.
On the 9th Street Art Project, it's Ella Backus is the artist who's designed the 155th mural that's going to be on Chautauqua and 9th Street. And so they have open community paint events so that you can get involved with this the Way to Work program. There's 7 youth that are working now, and then there's Urban League Rise Up for Youth that are volunteering to paint. But we'll be over at McAdams tonight at the TARP. Or if you're coming to the TARP, you can also do some community painting. So I just wanted to update that.
Thank you, Councilman Johnson. I am Timothy Sims, and I am pastor of Church of the City, and I also serve as on the Wichita Citizens Review Board that is established for accountability and transparency with our police department. I am a District 1 representative. I served on the prior board, and though when it was reorganized, it's not organized based upon district representatives, but since I'm a resident of District 1, I feel a responsibility to represent District 1. And so maybe I can come back. I saw you have the police here. Maybe I can come back at a later meeting and give you some updates as it relates to that board. We have open meetings. This gentleman right here comes and sits in on our meetings. They're typically the 4th Thursday of each month from 4 to 6 p.m. downtown, 455 North Main. The next meeting will not be July 26th, but will be August 2nd. All right? And those are open meetings to the public, and would be
good for you to come and sit in on and hear some of the things that are going on.
Yeah, I'll happily offer you some time to speak about that at our future meetings. Mr. Cook?
They tried real hard to talk about accountability last time. They really want accountability. That's what the Citizens Review Board is for. They're driving for it. He's working at it. Well, I'm not on the board, but I sit in and listen and try to say something every once in a while. Accountability is how we change the city. They know it, and they're trying to lead, and they can use your help.
Hey everyone, my name is Lacey Cruz and I'm running for County Commissioner. I have a card right here which is ironic because two of my things are accountability and transparency. So hopefully, you know that, what? Oh no, I can't do that.
Can't campaign in public.
Okay, dang it, well sorry, my bad. See, I'm a newbie at this, I don't really know. Okay.
Okay, we're all.
Sorry.
So if you're done with the survey, you can just put it in the back.
Oh, I know, I see this on, number 16, it says, well, okay, if McAdams Community Center was remodeled, and then on the bottom part it says, save Barry Sanders Field. So what does that mean? Like, if they don't remodel McAdams, are they gonna take away Barry Sanders
So
Field?
Horizontes is helping with an initiative to revamp McAdams Park. That's one of my personal initiatives.
Yeah.
I talked to Armando about it. And what we are doing is they're gonna go survey and canvass the entire area to see what folks wanna do there. The reason Barry Sanders Field is there, one is that it needs some investment, as we all can see. Two is half of the football games this year will be played at Stryker, which is at 29th and Greenwich. So that means all of our neighborhood kids will be going out there. 29th and Greenwich. It's a nice drive.
29th and Greenwich.
So our goal again is to revamp the whole park and especially that field and advocate for more of our games to stay in our community. It's hard for our young people to get out to 29th and Greenwich. For the rec center, one of my personal goals again is to redo that rec center. Right now the cooling is tough when it's hot. It could use a lot of new stuff. We don't have Wi-Fi in there. So if we can revamp that rec center, I think one will get even more usage out of it. It'll be modernized and be more of an asset to our community in the park. So they are helping with that. On top of that, I wasn't in the outing, but our park board appointee representative for District 1 is in the back, Mr. Alejo. So he is also helping with that as well. So don't be alarmed by that. We're just trying to make sure we get real input on how that should be designed. So we want to see a community-led revitalization and not a, I think this is good, let's do it.
How do we not recognize Barry Sanders? Do you understand me?
Save our pool.
Well, I was told by the park department that the reason that they're not using that field is because they're saving the grass. What does that mean?
I hadn't heard that.
I called them and said, because they were not using the field. They should have gone there and run the field. And I called them and asked them, they said they were saving the grass for games, not the grass.
I hadn't heard that. Well, thank you all for coming. Again, please make sure you RSVP for our next breakfast.
We all served in those positions.
We're already starting to make plans for the project in a couple of years. And we've already spent a lot of money on it, and we showed everyone the